What's up, world? I'm Cameron McKinney, and this is Pop Culture Spotlight, a podcast about the movie Wicked. Here's a quick synopsis. In the land of Oz, Glinda the Good is telling the people of Munchkinland the tale of how she and the recently deceased Wicked Witch of the West, whose real name is Elphaba, were once friends. The film stars Ariana Grande, Cynthia Erivo, Jonathan Bailey, Ethan Slater, Michelle Yeoh, Marissa Bode, Peter Dinklage, and Jeff Goldblum. Standout performances. Many people were surprised when none other than pop sensation Ariana Grande was chosen to play Glinda, the role made famous by Kristen Chenoweth in the Broadway play. Grande's most famous acting credits prior was on television in not one but two Nickelodeon shows, Victorious from 2012 to 2013 and Sam and Cat from 2012 to 2014. It's worth noting that Grande herself worked with Chenoweth, the original Glinda, on Hairspray Live in 2016, and I also wanted to say I liked Ariana Grande's performance in Adam McKay's Don't Look Up, but she was playing a pop star. Let's get into her performance as Glinda in Wicked Part 1. It's impossible to watch this movie and not be impressed. You knew she was going to be able to hold her own singing these songs. What you will not be prepared for is how funny she is during the comedic moments in the film. I walked away believing Ariana Grande should be the lead of a comedy. She also just had the star it quality. And look, there's a history of famous musicians faring well in movies. You have Cher, Jennifer Hudson, and Lady Gaga. Now it's yet to be determined if Grande will reach their levels, but she's well on her way. Grande was determined to play the role of Glinda no matter what, telling Kyle Buchanan of the New York Times, quote, "Some members of my team at the time were like, you shouldn't even have to audition. And I was like, you don't understand. Of course I have to. This is something that has to be earned. I have so much to prove, and I threw myself at it in every way that I could," end quote. This is also a role that Grande has been wanting to play for a long time, tweeting back in 2011, quote, "Loved seeing Wicked again. Amazing production. Made me realize again how badly I want to play Glinda at some point in my life. Hashtag dream role." There were serious questions regarding Ariana Grande when it comes to this movie, and she answered those questions. The more of a sure thing was her co-star, Cynthia Erivo, whose first film was Steve McQueen's Widows, where she was the breakout star, and she was Oscar nominated for playing Harriet Tubman in Harriet. And in these big movies, she's kind of been wasted in Chaos Walking and in Disney's live-action Pinocchio, and I'm happy to report that was absolutely not the case with Wicked, where she plays Elphaba. Some people are higher on the performance than others, but the consensus is she's good. And my take on why seemingly Grande is getting more praise is because Erivo is playing the more stoic character, where Grande is more of the showstopper. What's not getting enough praise is the chemistry these two stars have together. And finally, you have Jonathan Bailey playing Prince Fiero, who gets caught in a love triangle. The actor was very good at portraying someone who was acting cool but wanted more in life. Now his main time to shine is during the song Dancing Through Life. I've never seen Bailey in Bridgerton, but I did watch him during 2016's Crashing, a series that paired him with Phoebe Waller-Bridge. Wicked is going to help turn him into a household name, along with his next project, Jurassic World Rebirth, which he co-stars with Scarlett Johansson, Mahershala Ali, and Rupert Friend. The director of Wicked is none other than Jon M Chu, whose big breakout was Crazy Rich Asians. This is not the first musical he's directed. In 2021, he directed Into the Heights, a movie I very much enjoyed. I mean this as a compliment. He's a very competent filmmaker who is good at getting breakout performances. In Crazy Rich Asians with Henry Golding and Awkwafina, In the Heights with Anthony Ramos and Michelle Barrera, and with Wicked with Ariana Grande and Jonathan Bailey. He deserves credit for getting the first great big screen performances of these actors' film careers. I also don't think that Michelle Yeoh wins an Oscar for Everything Everywhere All at Once if it was not for her performance in Crazy Rich Asians. I mean, that movie revitalized her career. So for someone who's seen the play Wicked, I've heard these iconic songs before, and the way they are performed in the movie is the strength of the film. Ariana Grande with Popular, Jonathan Bailey with Walking Through Life, and Cynthia Ervio with Defying Gravity. They all lived up to the hype and also felt cinematic. A lot of the times when you're watching a stage show adapted into a movie, it still feels like a play. I never once had that thought with Wicked. It's a movie musical that does stand on its own. My one big critique would be the non-musical moments do at times feel weak, and you end up just wanting the next song. And I know the music is everything, but there are movie musicals with compelling moments in between songs. I think if the movie could have grown those moments out more, it would have distanced itself more from the play. This movie, like most movie musicals, have two well-known actors that are not known for singing in Jeff Goldblum and Michelle Yeoh. If you use the advantages you have with them and give them great non-musical moments, then they can become memorable. But you kind of walk away from the movie going, they really kind of wasted Michelle Yeoh and they wasted Jeff Goldblum. I don't think this movie played to either of those two actors' strengths. The major critique I've heard the most is that people do not like the look of this movie. They don't like the CGI. They just don't like the look of Oz. And this is something you see a lot when it comes to recreating these iconic fictional places. Like, we can never come into agreement what Neverland should look like in a Peter Pan movie or what Wonderland should look like in an Alice in Wonderland movie. And now we can't even agree on what Oz should look like. I have absolutely no problem with the look of this movie. I just think they committed to something and they went for it, and I think it is effective. Some shots are better than others. That's to be expected. I just think we all have different views on how Oz should look like. The movie looks good. Do I think it should win an Oscar for Best Cinematography? Absolutely not. The high praise for Wicked Part 1 may seem over the top, but you have to keep in mind the recent failures of Broadway shows turned into movies. Cats and Dear Evan Hansen. It doesn't get much worse than that. So when you see one that works, it's impressive. And the people that love the Broadway show Wicked the most seem to be the ones that love the movie the most. And that says something about the movie overall, because that's the audience this movie is going for. Yes, it wants to turn non-Wicked fans into Wicked fans, but if it can grab the hearts and minds of the people who love the show in the first place, that is the overall goal, and I think the movie is reaching that goal and going beyond it. One thing that I do find fascinating is that we are coming back around to movies being broken into two parts. This was big in the 2010s. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, Twilight Breaking Dawn, and The Hunger Games Mockingjay. And the issues with these part ones is finding a natural spot to end the movie, and Hollywood has seemingly figured it out with Dune Part 1 and now Wicked Part 1. Very few people, if any, have been upset where those two films ended, and with the success of each, I definitely think you will see more movies being broken up into two parts. Yes, I know some of you hear that and you have that cynical thought, oh, they only do that so that they can make more money off of Wicked. Yes, Wicked Part 2 is probably going to make even more money than Wicked, but that is a smart business model, because now people have seen Wicked, it's a good movie, there will be even more hype around Part 2. The same thing happened with Dune. Dune Part 1 was really good, it did well at the box office, and then Dune Part 2 thrived because of the success of Dune. The challenge of a Part 2 is that in the eyes of most people, it has to be better than Part 1, and Dune Part 2 was better than Dune in my opinion. I don't know about Wicked Part 2, I haven't seen the movie. I have to believe they are keeping a lot of the big stuff for Wicked Part 2. I know that they are adding new songs that were not in the play. That can be shaky because you don't know if those songs are going to be memorable, but I have to believe Part 2 is going to try to outdo Wicked Part 1. Box office. Wicked, to the surprise of absolutely no one, is a hit so far, making over $360 million. What it had was not only the history of the Broadway show, but also the history of The Wizard of Oz, one of the most talked about movie classics of all time. I also believe that Ariana Grande's fame has helped this movie out. By how much, I don't know, but it has to be a factor. I think people cared about seeing Ariana Grande in this movie. I think if a lesser known actress was playing the role of Glinda, people would not have gone out in droves the way they did. I think the fans of Ariana Grande have seen this movie because of Ariana Grande. I definitely believe her star power has helped this movie. Oscar chances. There's a strong possibility Ariana Grande is going to get a nomination for Best Supporting Actress, and that's well deserved. I like it when a good performance from popular movies get in there. I would be surprised if she wins. It could be a big year for pop singers at the Oscars, as Selena Gomez could also get a nomination for Emilia Perez. I don't rule out Cynthia Ervio getting nominated either, and I fully believe that Wicked is getting a Best Picture nomination. And right now online, there are a lot of movie lovers who are afraid of the idea of Wicked Part 1 winning Best Picture at the Oscars. Do I want that to happen? Absolutely not. But it never, and I mean never, bothers me what movies win Best Picture. I'm not one of these people who get worked up thinking about that Shakespeare in Love won Best Picture, that Forrest Gump won Best Picture, that Green Book won Best Picture. It doesn't bother me. The movie I think is the best movie of the year rarely ever wins Best Picture. And the idea that it says something bad about where we're at with movies if Wicked Part 1 wins Best Picture is pure and utter nonsense. I think if Wicked Part 1 wins Best Picture, it will be because of people getting swept up in the moment of Wicked's popularity. The same way I think people got swept up in the success of Barbie. It's not a bad thing to get swept up when a movie is having gigantic success. That's why Forrest Gump won Best Picture, because it was in the zeitgeist. Everyone had opinions on that movie. It's human nature to want to be a part of that conversation and to think that the Oscars are going to completely ignore Wicked Part 1, the biggest movie of the moment, is just pure insanity. It's not going to happen. They are going to recognize Wicked Part 1. Are they going to recognize it with Best Picture? I don't think so, but it's not out of the realm of possibility, and I don't necessarily think if it won Best Picture, it would be a bad thing. The other thing I hear all of the time is that you can't give a Best Picture win to a Part 1 of a story, because they all go back to how Lord of the Rings didn't win Best Picture until the final movie, and they're saying the same thing about Dune and Dune Part 2. The Dune Part 1 didn't win Best Picture because we were all waiting for the finale in Dune Part 2. That's not how this works. The Academy can give Best Picture to whomever movie they want to give Best Picture to, and if they want to give Best Picture to Wicked Part 1, they're going to give Best Picture to Wicked Part 1. The loudest people against this movie are the non-fans of the Broadway show Wicked, and we're just going to find out how much of the Academy were fans of the Broadway show, because if this movie wins, it's going to be because the fans of the show voted for this movie to win Best Picture, and they're getting swept up in the moment, which again, it's in our human nature to get swept up in a moment. It's why I'm doing a podcast on this movie. It's why I wanted to see this movie, because I wanted to talk about a movie that I know everyone is going to see. It's why I watch Gladiator 2, because they're popular movies that everyone wants to talk about. It's not a bad thing to want to be a part of the conversation. In fact, I think it's a cool thing when a popular movie wins Best Picture, because we all have a history with those popular movies. Gladiator won Best Picture. Guess what? Everyone has seen the movie Gladiator. It makes people talk about these movies, and the history of these movies live on. Oppenheimer won Best Picture last year. That's a movie that made near $1 billion. People want to have continuous conversations about that movie. If Wicked Part 1 wins Best Picture, it will be a Best Picture winner that people will be talking about for years to come. And part of me thinks that's a positive. Instead of giving a movie Best Picture that's really good and underseen by moviegoers, but nobody will want to talk about after it wins the award. I mean, how many Best Picture winners do we no longer talk about? The way I feel feel about Wicked Part 1 winning Best Picture is the exact same way I would have felt if Barbie ended up winning Best Picture. It would have been about the quality of those movies and the mass amounts of conversation surrounding them and the popularity surrounding them. Popularity towards a movie is not a bad thing. And I think too many movie critics want to take down popular movies, when in reality, Barbie is a really, really good movie and Wicked Part 1 is a really, really good movie. That being said, I don't believe Wicked Part 1 is going to win Best Picture. I think its best chance of winning an Oscar is in the hands of Ariana Grande. I think people will get swept up in this performance. I have gotten swept up in this performance. It's a brilliant comedic turn, and I think she could be rewarded with a Best Supporting Actress Oscar. I know people have talked about Zoe Saldana and Emilia Perez, but I think the success of Wicked could catapult Ariana Grande into winning an Oscar. In the last week or so, I'm seeing a lot of negative feelings around our movie culture, that it's a bad thing that the movies dominating the box office right now are Wicked, Gladiator 2, and Moana 2. Look, is that the best thing ever that sequels and franchises are dominating? No, but I think it's a good thing that, in my opinion, Gladiator 2 and Wicked Part 1 are really good, well-made films made by really good directors with really good performances in them. Are they perfect movies? No, neither one is a perfect movie. But they are better movies than what studios usually offer us at the movie theaters. And if your knock against Gladiator 2 and Wicked Part 1 is that they are not Oppenheimer and Barbie, then you are insane. We are probably never going to get another moment like Barbie and Oppenheimer, two movies that make $1 billion and close to $1 billion. And it's true that these two movies might end up producing two Oscar winners. Denzel Washington may very well end up winning his third Oscar, and Ariana Grande might end up winning her very first Oscar. I'm interested to see what this means for her acting career moving forward. I mean, Ariana Grande, like I've been saying, is very good in Wicked Part 1. But what does this mean for her overall career? I mean, this is a musical. She's best suited for this. The comedic elements work. Guess what movies aren't being made a lot anymore? Comedies and musicals. So how is she going to be able to thrive in this new Hollywood? Are they going to make musicals where she's the lead of? Is she going to be able to be the lead of a comedy? Is she going to try to branch out and become a dramatic actress? Or was Wicked a one-off and she really only wants to be a pop star? The other career that everyone's talking about is Jon M Chu's. Like, some people are talking about this guy like he's the next Steven Spielberg. Stop calling every next director the next Spielberg. It doesn't work out. Didn't we do this with M. Night Shyamalan? Haven't we done this with so many guys? There is no next Steven Spielberg. Jon M Chu is a very good director. Do I believe he's one of the best directors working today? I do not. I think he's very good. I think he's very solid. I think he makes very good movies. And I think he's one of those very rare directors who knows how to make a good movie within the studio system. Getting back to the Oscars, the only way I could see Wicked Part 1 winning Best Picture is if Ariana Grande, Cynthia Erivo, and Jonathan Bailey all get Oscar nominations. To me, that would be a sign of, oh wow, this movie has a real chance to win Best Picture if all three of those performances get nominated, because that would show how much the Academy loves this movie. Overall, I liked Wicked Part 1 better than I ever could have imagined. I was really impressed with Ariana Grande, Cynthia Erivo, and Jonathan Bailey, and I'm excited for Wicked Part 2, which is the entire point of Wicked Part 1. It is a building block to where the movie is going in Part 2. If Part 1 doesn't get you excited for Part 2, then guess what? Part 1 is a failure, and Wicked Part 1 is not a failure. I want to see Wicked Part 2. I want to see more Ariana Grande as Glinda. I want to see more Erivo as Elphaba, and I want to see more of Bailey's Fiyero. And that's a sign to me that this movie was perfectly casted. When it was announced that Ariana Grande was playing Glinda, we all kind of rolled our eyes and went, oh wow, they only got her so that we would watch the movie. and so it's a pleasant surprise that she is, in my opinion, the best thing about the movie. And in a year from now, I really hope I'm just as enthusiastic about Wicked Part 2. Thanks for listening to this edition of Pop Culture Spotlight. I'm Cameron McKinney, and there'll be a new episode of the podcast every Thursday on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I highly recommend you check out Wicked Part 1. Next week on the podcast, I'm talking about Malcolm Washington's The Piano Lesson, starring John David Washington, Danielle Deadweiler, and Samuel L. Jackson. So tune into that, and please rate, review, and subscribe.